Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, August 13th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 601 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we are recapping day number 2 of New York Jets and New York Giants joint practice. Yesterday, of course, I was in attendance with my in-person takeaways. Today, the New York Jets traveled up to East Rutherford, New Jersey to take on the Giants at their facility. And we've got a lot of takeaways for you here today on the podcast. Of course, as we always begin, we'll start with everything that took place on the field up in East Rutherford, New Jersey today between the Jets and the Giants. And then later on in today's episode, as we always do, we'll take a listen to some sound as Arian, Glenn, and Breece Hall met the media today. So we'll break those comments down and give you some clips later on to close out today's practice. But as always, we begin with what took place on the field, what took place on the grass, of course, as Arian Glenn always likes to say here on day number 2 of Jets-Giants joint practice. Lots of takeaways and lots of real big analysis that you can come away with over these last 2 days. Next 2 days, these two teams get ready for the Snoopy Bowl. Saturday night, these two teams, of course, will face off to close out the week in preseason game number 2. But from today's practice standpoint, we'll start here, of course, with Justin Fields and the offense. It was another kind of up and down practice. It started from a 7-on-7 red zone drill perspective where the Jets and Justin Fields had some success. Yes, it's only 7-on-7s and it's in the red zone, so you can't take a ton from that, but still a lot of completions, a lot of spreading the ball around. And then you got to the 11-on-11s, and it was kind of similar to yesterday. Lots of pressure in Justin Fields' face. The Giants' defensive line is ferocious. Both tackles at times today, Olu and Membu, struggled, which we'll dive more into as today's episode goes on. But you saw a lot of that pressure hinder the Jets a bit. And it continues to kind of be the same theme with this Jets offense right now, which is a lot of short, quick passes. Not a ton downfield. There was a couple plays, but a lot of short, quick passes, incorporating a lot of those read options, despite some of the struggles from a pass protection standpoint today. And even yesterday, you did see some positives again with this run game. It feels like every single training camp practice, we walk away with positives to take from a run blocking standpoint and just a overall run game standpoint. And that was the case again today. There were certainly some good things there. So a little bit of a mixed bag up and down. You would have liked to seen the offense do a little bit more when you got to the 11-on-11 periods, especially when you got to the drive the field period with a minute left at the end, where it's kind of your scrimmage type against this Giants defense. The Jets weren't able to really generate anything on that. That is something that you would like to see change, but it happens. 2 practices down. You continue to roll on here as training camp moves forward and you get ready here for preseason game number 2. We'll start here with Justin Fields to really break it down. 7-on-7 drills in the red zone starting at the 5-yard line. So pretty much every completion, it's a touchdown. He found Breece in the back of the end zone. Tyler Johnson, good pass and coverage in the end zone there for a touchdown. Xavier Gipson as well. This one was across the middle. And then he was able to get the ball to Brandon Smith. Brandon Smith had a very good day today. That is not the first time you're going to hear Brandon Smith today in this episode. He found him in the back of the end zone. Garrett Wilson as well for a touchdown. And then a couple incompletions. Tried Garrett again, bobbled it a bit, was out of bounds, couldn't quite get his feet in, and an incomplete to Reynolds. He was rolling out to his right, found Reynolds, but was out of bounds, and then was trying to connect with Kuntz, couldn't, back of the end zone, good coverage, tough ball, incomplete. Another touchdown, though, to Brandon Smith, and then tried Brandon Smith one more time, incomplete. Really nobody was open in a real 11-on-11 environment. That's probably a play that field scrambles on. 7-on-7, of course, with no pass rush. You have a lot of time. Nobody open, though, kind of threw Brandon Smith's direction, but didn't turn into anything. But still, decent amount of completions there. Breece, Brandon Smith twice, Garrett, Tyler Johnson, heck, even Xavier Gibson, who is now back, of course, after missing some time with the injury, as he continues to fight for one of these final roster spots from a special teams and wide receiver perspective. So that was the 7-on-7 stuff. Now you move to the 11-on-11 drills. Things started out with a completion to Andrew Beck. That's a familiar face all of a sudden here. It's the summer of Andrew Beck, one of those underneath routes, again, which we saw a couple times in the Green Bay game, where Beck was able to catch it and turn it into a nice game underneath. Breece then on a run play was tackled for loss. Kayvon beat Olu. And then Fields on a read option the very next play took off, and there was nobody in the area. It's tough to tell really how long this play would have been, but it was a massive, massive chunk of yards, and that's one of those plays that you look at in this offense, and you saw a little bit more of that today, those read options and Fields' ability to get outside the pocket, hit the open field, and do damage with his legs. And that wasn't one of those plays either where he probably would have been brought down. No, it was legitimately nobody was even near Fields. It would have been a massive, massive chunk of yards, even in a real game environment, before he was finally brought down essentially with the two-hand touch, no contact of the quarterbacks, and no tackling either in these 2 days. So that was one of the bigger plays from Fields in terms of using his legs today. Then tried to get it to, or Braylon Allen had a nice run up the middle, and in this set of 11-on-11 drills ended with an incompletion to Garrett. More 11-on-11 drills. Breece had a nice run, good run blocking up the middle to create a hole. Fields was then sacked, then had a completion to Braylon Allen, checked down, nobody was open, was able to find Braylon, and he turned it into a nice gain, and then it fizzled out. Tackle for loss on Braylon Allen the very next play, and then Fields was sacked. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Olu, who was very good yesterday, more of a bumpy practice today. Membu, of course, struggled yesterday, struggled again a bit today. They certainly had their wins, but overall, it was Burns, Thibodeau, Abdul Carter. They're just disgusting what they're able to throw at you, not even counting what, of course, Dexter Lawrence can do in the interior. And Abdul Carter yesterday as well was lining up a bit in the interior. Just such a threat for that Giants defense. That is going to be a massive threat this season. So that's how one of the other 11-on-11 drives fizzled out. Now, they did more 11-on-11s, this time starting at the Giants' 35-yard line, so in enemy territory. Breece Hall began with a short run. Braylon then had a nice gain for about 8 or so yards. So it was about 3rd and short, and found Garrett Wilson, or incomplete rather, or found Garrett Wilson on a completion across the middle. And in the next play, looked Garrett Wilson's way again. Bad throw, a little bit of a late throw, off target, pressure in his face. That was for that. That was the end of that set. And then one more set of 11-on-11s before we get to the drive the field drills. There was a false start to open up this drill. All of the wide receivers that were on the field were then replaced, which I thought was notable. Glenn has done that a ton, of course. Fields with another read option. That's the second time here for a nice gain. Had a completion of Brandon Smith underneath for about 10 yards. Good pass protection, letting Fields kind of survey the field. Nobody open, but finding Brandon Smith for a nice little gain. And then he did look the next play, nobody really open. holding on the offensive line. Fields got sacked anyway. So lots of pressure. A lot of it coming towards the end of these drills too, where early parts of some of these sets of drills, there was some success, and then late, it was nobody open, sacked, pressure, bad throws, kind of a mix. Now, the 1-minute drive to field drill, this is where you would have liked to see the Jets offense finish a little bit stronger today. It started, of course, with a 1st and 10, completion to Tyler Johnson for a nice 9-yard pickup, puts them in a 2nd and 1 situation. Penalty, though, on the Jets, illegal formation, backs them up 5 yards. So 2nd and 6 with 43 seconds left on the clock. Fields looks for Tyler Johnson, burns in his face, incomplete. 3rd and 6 then, found Brandon Smith across the middle for a 1st down. And then on 1st and 10, new set of downs, found Ruckert for about 5 yards. They hurry up, timeout. 2nd and 5 now with 11 seconds at the 50-yard line. So trying to get a couple plays together, potentially 2 plays left here, pick up some yards, put your field goal, put yourself in a better field goal position. However, incomplete to Garrett Wilson. Giants blitzed, pressure in Fields' face, quick throw, inaccurate. And then 3rd and 5 with 6 seconds left, another pass, bit inaccurate for Garrett Wilson, incomplete. And that was the end. I think it was 4th and 5 then with 2 seconds left. So the Giants defense won that set. You would have liked to seen the Jets there where they're at 2nd and 5 with 11 seconds at the 50-yard line. You would have liked to seen them with those 2 more plays turn that into 10 to 12 more yards potentially. Unfortunately, though, you had the pressure with the Giants blitzing, an incompletion, and then Fields with the inaccurate throw to Garrett to close that out. So bumpy end there. Would have liked to seen them finish it a bit stronger. But the main story, lots of pressure, Fields still utilizing his legs a ton, and a lot of those short, quick passes. And you really look at the way this Jets offense is going to be structured, right? You know it's going to be a run-first team, but this is also a team that's going to have to put themselves in a lot of position because they haven't really had Fields stretch the field much. Put them in a position where you're in some of those 3rd and short situations where those short, quick passes can move the chains, and you're not putting yourself in even 2nd and long or 3rd and long situations where Fields has got to air it out a bit more. That seems to be the approach so far. Couple notes from Adrian Martinez. He had a touchdown to Stone Smart across the middle. Couple completions to Brandon Smith, Jamal Pritchett, Malachi Corley sighting, Pokey Wilson, and one of the biggest highlights of the day, Arian Smith. Deep ball, tight coverage, excellent catch. Arian Smith continues to put together an excellent training camp. I don't think any Jet fan, when they selected Arian Smith, could have predicted that he would look this good in his first training camp, considering when you looked at what he did in college, how much he needed to work on coming out of Georgia. And here he is, just so impressive. The hands have been impressive. He hasn't had drop issues. That was something that he struggled with in college. That hasn't been the case. I can only really recall 1 or 2 Arian Smith drops maybe this summer, if that. But even then, I'd probably have to go digging through my notes. I have 25 pages, by the way, of training camp notes. So I'm a maniac, but I have to dive through a lot of that. Either way, though, Arian Smith's been awesome. And I think what's so great about Arian Smith so far is he shined today and continues to stand out. Yesterday made some plays. Today made some plays. It's every single practice now where we're walking away impressed by Arian Smith. And that's such a nice surprise because you look at this wide receiver room, there's a lot of question marks, and you just look at the weapons in general. It's going to be essentially a wide receiver 2 by committee, but even more so just pass catcher number 2 by committee behind Garrett Wilson. Garrett's going to lead the way, but then you're going to have Breece heavily involved. Mason Taylor's going to be heavily involved. And then your clumps of wide receivers. Josh Reynolds. Can somebody like a Stone Smart emerge a bit, who I think has actually quietly had a nice summer? Had the touchdown in the preseason game. Another touchdown today. He has shown a lot more from a receiving perspective than Jeremy Ruckert has in 3 years, let's be honest. And then you have your Tyler Johnsons, your Arian Smiths. If Arian Smith can really continue to emerge here, that's such a pleasant surprise because that is not something that you expected going into training camp, right? But if he can really emerge and maybe play himself into the wide receiver number 2 at some point this year, that's huge. Not just this year, but moving forward. And you don't want to crown him yet. Look, it's training camp. You don't want to crown him. You don't want to say this guy is the next great receiver. No, but from what you thought you were getting and what looked like it was going to be a long summer full of growing pains just because of how much he had to work on coming out of college. He has the raw speed, athleticism, but the hands, the route running, just struggling against NFL level corners. That was all expected, and that hasn't been the case. It's not just his speed. His speed has shown off. His speed's been evident, but it's more than that. The hands have been reliable. He's been a good route runner. He's not just a vertical threat. He's a guy that's been able to get across the middle and make plays in traffic. That's huge for this New York Jets team, and that's huge for Arian Smith, who you kind of felt like, and it still could be the case here early in the season, is more just that vertical package guy where he's on the field when you need to stretch the field a bit. But he's turning into more than that. And I give Arian Smith a lot of credit. Every practice, he's there. After practice, he's always working on the jugs machines. I think I heard the other day, too, I was reading, there's some goggles that he uses that help him with his hands, I guess, whatever it is. But there is a clear emphasis for him on wanting to get better, improving his catching. And I think another thing, too, is just some of these physical plays that he's made. I mean, he's gone up and got some balls in tight coverage. He's not the biggest receiver. He's not the most physical receiver. That's one of his downsides coming out of college. But this has been a guy that against these corners has been able to get up and win 50-50 balls. And that's big. So I'm really happy with what I've seen from Arian Smith. I think if you're a Jet fan, you've got to be thrilled with what you've seen from him. And you want to continue to see this, throughout the rest of the preseason and even these remaining training camp practices that they have as well. But I just think, too, it's really impressive in these joint practices what he's been able to do. He's been a very nice surprise. Maybe the most pleasant surprise of training camp. He's up there. He's definitely up there. I certainly expected it to be a summer of really lots of growing pains, definitely some struggles, but he looks very comfortable, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing for a wide receiver room that needs anybody to really step up. So those are the main takeaways. Quarterbacks, Arian Smith, who I had to throw in there. We'll get to some more of the receivers here in a second. But from the running back perspective, Braylon Allen looked like he had a big run today, about probably a 30-plus yard touchdown. Kind of tough to tell with the way they signaled it, where, again, no tackling would have been brought down, but Glenn seemed to think it was a touchdown. Braylon Allen got into space, did get to the end zone, so we'll give him it. 30-plus yard, big gain from Braylon there. Couple nice runs today. Breece as well. And again, in the receiving game, whether it was 7-on-7s, couple of the receptions that he had, and 11-on-11s continues to be somebody. And we'll get to something that Breece said about becoming more of a receiving back later on, but he continues to be a focal point, really, in this passing offense. I mentioned Arian Smith with the wide receivers. Brandon Smith was another name that popped off today. Made a couple nice plays yesterday that I noted in person and with my in-person takeaways. He was very good. But Brandon Smith, I really think today he had about 4 to 5 to maybe even 6 catches. He was excellent today. A lot of those coming across the middle, a couple plays in traffic. He's been really, really good. He had the 2 catches for the first down conversions against Green Bay in the preseason game, so he showed out a bit there. And with Lazard out, it's more reps for him. Lazard dealing with the shoulder out 2 weeks here. Brandon Smith's getting more reps. All these guys are getting more reps, but that's huge for Brandon Smith. He's been excellent. And I say this all the time. I understand the Jets value Lazard's blocking, but I would not be opposed to giving a guy like Brandon Smith a roster spot over Lazard. I don't think Lazard should be a lock. I think he'll make this team, and I would still be a little bit surprised if he does get cut. But there's a strong case to be made, and I'm certainly on board that you can go with you can go with Brandon Smith and take the younger approach. I'd totally be open to that. Hey, Brandon Smith, he's been excellent, and he's got another big opportunity here coming up against the Giants on Saturday. And obviously, too, just this coaching staff as well has gone out of their way and praised him up. There's certainly some liking there from Brandon Smith. He had a good spring, has carried it into the summer. So he's really making a strong case to make this team. And if you were to tell me that the Jets came out of camp with Garrett, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith, those four, and then let's say Pritchett and Brandon Smith as your six. So Pritchett over Gibson, Corley cut, Lazard out, and Brandon Smith in. I can get on board with that, and I can understand that. Are there still a lot of questions? Definitely, but I think that's a risk you take and an avenue that you potentially go down if you're the Jets, if Brandon Smith continues to produce here. So those are the main takeaways from the wide receivers. It was the day of the Smiths, if you will. Tight end mentioned the Stone Smart touchdown. In terms of the offensive line, right, lots of struggles. Abdul Carter, Burns, Kayvon continue to dominate. Membu struggled a bit again. Olu, after what was a really strong day today, Kayvon, Burns got the better of him on a decent amount of reps today. During O-line, D-line drills, Josh Myers got absolutely ran over by Dexter Lawrence. So Giants defensive line's disgusting. The positive from the Jets offensive line perspective is the run blocking was, again, very good. But past back-to-back days, certainly some struggles in pass pro. And I don't think that should be much of a surprise considering you're probably going up against a Giants offensive line that is one of the top in football and a generational talent, or easily the best prospect in last year's draft in Abdul Carter. But very good reps for Armand Membu in terms of learning experience. Very good reps. And going back out there, we'll see if all the starters play. But if Membu's back out there on Saturday and he gets an opportunity against any of those guys in game, that's another very, very valuable experience for him. Couple D-line notes. Leonard Taylor registered a pressure on Russ. Braden McGregor had a sack. And J2 Fele, good day for him. Jermaine Johnson, Quinnen Williams. We'll dive more into injury updates here soon, but they were on the sideline in street clothes. Both of them were on pads doing some positional drills yesterday, but we're off today, so continue to be smart with those guys. No need to rush them back. Jermaine especially, just got activated. Quinnen as well. We'll see those guys week one as long as they're ready to go for that. Same thing with Sauce. Linebackers, Jamie and Sherwood had a couple nice plays today. Very short tackling, especially during the 2-minute drill or the 1-minute drill that the Giants did. Made a couple really nice tackles to hold them off there. Jets defense won that drill. So both the defenses won essentially the final 1-minute drill where the Jets couldn't get anything and the Giants couldn't either. Some secondary notes. Brandon Stephens, another pass breakup today. I mean, that has got to be a ton. I'm not going to log the pass breakup stats in training camp because at the end of the day, he's got to do it in the game. But Brandon Stephens has been such a nice surprise. We talk about Arian Smith. Brandon Stephens, another one of those names where for different reasons, right? Arian Smith, a rookie, but Brandon Stephens, a guy that struggled immensely last year with Baltimore, did not have a good spring. He was very, very poor in some of those spring practices. And you went into training camp thinking that there was a real chance that his starting job could kind of be on the hot seat already. And he hasn't even played it down for the Jets, but he has quickly changed that narrative. And Glenn talked about it today. He's been excellent, but they continue to want to work with him on those ball skills. And what's so positive about Stephens is the pass breakups, because for the amount of times, and I spoke on this in my player preview that I did on him, one of the more intriguing player previews that I've done, just because his coverage ability and his ability to be sticky in coverage is elite. One of the better ones in football. But then when the ball is thrown his way, his ball hawking ability to generate pass breakups and interceptions is one of the worst in the NFL. And that's where you saw the second most yards allowed by a corner last year, 800 plus. So him generating pass breakups, he's also had a handful of interceptions this training camp. That's really big because he's very good in coverage. Like his coverage in terms of when the route is being run, he's not a guy that's going to blow coverage. But when the ball is thrown his way, what he does with that is where the issues occur. He's not able to get his hands on the football. And that's where guys make plays against him, and that's where the yards are given up. And so far, when the ball is thrown his way, he's been able to get his hand on it. And that's a positive and something that you want to see in the season. If Brandon Stephens is able to be coached up and turn into something for this team, that's huge next to Sauce Gardner. That's so massive. Him and Sauce in that secondary together, if Stephens' ball skills continue this trend. Malachi Moore also had a strong practice as he continues to have a nice summer. He's been a really pleasant rookie as well to watch so far. And those are the main notes. In terms of just some special team stuff, Nick Folk went 6 of 6 today, including 2 from 50+. Harrison Mevis did as well. An interesting note with Donovan Edwards. Right, I talked about this the other day coming out of the preseason game. Donovan Edwards, amongst the Jets fan base, very intriguing player right now, very talked about player right now in terms of potentially making this 53-man roster. But the toughest thing is finding a spot for him. Holding 4 running backs and him not really playing a role in special teams is really tough, especially when you have Kene Nwangu, who is technically your running back but your kick returner. It's tough, and I've talked about it many times. Donovan Edwards, if he wants to make this team, is going to have to find a role in special teams. And sure enough, today he was back returning punts, which was the first time that has happened. Certainly all the practices that I've been there, he has not been back returning punts. Today he was. He was also back returning kicks, along with Gibson, Nwangu, Arian Smith, Jamal Pritchett, Corley, the normal kick returners. But that's something to note. Feels like the Jets internally see something in Donovan Edwards, kind of get that feeling that if he doesn't, or if he gets cut, that they're not going to be able to claim him. You kind of get that feeling from the Jets where let's try him in some of these special teams roles. Let's see what he could do as a punt returner, kick returner, heck, even a gunner, and see if he provides any value. And that's his chance to stick around on this roster. So something to continue to keep an eye on. And that's the main notes from on the field. Now, as we always do, we'll take a listen to some sound here to close out today's episode. Aaron Glenn met the media. We'll start with him first. Here was his takes, or his update rather, on the Sauce Gardner injury.
I anticipate him playing this week, all right? So that's good. Sauce wasn't out today. He had some calf soreness. Continue to evaluate him and see exactly where he's at.
So Sauce dealing with the calf soreness. Play it smart. He did not, no need to be out there. Play it smart. No need to rush him back. Have him ready for week number 1. Same with Quinnen. Jermaine, of course, they continue to ease him back in there as well. And Brady Cook, one other note, he was back out there today. There was some question because Tyrod's down with the arthroscopic knee surgery, so he'll be down until week 1. At least that's where he's trending, but done for the preseason, done for training camp, of course. Brady Cook yesterday got stepped on, limped off the field, didn't finish practice. So there was that world where if Brady Cook couldn't go or was going to miss an extended period of time and you only had 2 rostered quarterbacks, that you might look at them potentially picking up a camp arm because you're not going to go into 2 more preseason games with just 2 rostered quarterbacks. But Brady Cook was back out there. So it's still the Brady Cook and Adrian Martinez show. You'll see a lot of them again on Saturday night. Glenn talked about just challenging the team coming out of yesterday's joint practice and how he felt they responded today.
Well, listen, I'm hard on our guys, and I know this is a hard game. And I said this yesterday about some of the players that they have, that it's tough to block those guys one-on-one. But I expect those guys to do it because we got some damn good players on our side of the ball too. So I'm just going to leave that at that. Just know that I'm very pleased with the way that we came out.
Happy with the results. And these last few days, it's been a productive couple of days here for this Jets team. Both sides, Jets and Giants, joint practices are always, of course, productive. And I think, too, just Right, there was certainly some positives, definitely some negatives. It was a mixed bag over these last 2 days. Offensively, felt like the defense yesterday dominated. Today, the Giants were able to do a little bit more defensively, although the Jets, were out without Sauce Gardner, Quinnen and Jermaine still out, so not full 100%. Neither are the Giants either. But overall, Glenn happy with the 2 days and happy how they came out today. One more from Aaron, Glenn. Jamie and Sherwood, as I noted earlier, had a strong day today. Here was his thoughts on the Jets' star linebacker.
One of the reasons we got him is not only is he a tone setter, but he has a voice that everybody listens to. And you want that out of your middle linebacker who's actually standing in front of the huddle, because it's a respect factor when it comes to that regard. So, listen, these practices, they'll get chippy every now and then, but these are grown men, and they're not kids. They understand how to get work in. And the one thing I told the guys is, listen, we compete, but we protect. And I think the guys did a good job of that.
Sherwood's one of the leaders on that defense. Right, this is the Mike linebacker. He's taking over. He's the one calling out the plays in that C.J. Mosley role. Big season coming up for him, and you expect him and Quincy Williams to have another productive year alongside each other. Breece Hall spoke. 2 quotes. One is a clip. The other one, don't have the clip, but want to read the quote. We'll start with the clip. Here was his thoughts on turning more or being involved more, rather, in the receiving game.
We got to do a pretty good job of, we do a pretty good job of just doing a little bit of drills every day in our Indy. Coach Nick has been doing a really good job of just making us hone in on the details of just little things. So it's been cool to see, how he gets on us. He's like, okay, your fake wasn't good enough on this play action pass. Your initial step towards the line could have helped sell the run just a little bit more. So doing little stuff like that and really honing in on the details has been fun. And I also watch guys like Garrett, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson, just watching those guys, how they run certain routes, and just trying to, obviously I'm much bigger than them, so I can't do it exactly the same way, but just trying to find little stuff that they do to help me.
I'm expecting a very big year out of Breece. I still believe in Breece. I know there's a lot of Jet fans that have jumped off the Breece train and trade I just don't understand that. I especially don't understand. Look, I can get if you're out on him in terms of just not being that good this year, but if you're on the train of trade him, it doesn't make sense. Why become thin at a position? Why become one less player at a position of strength? Like the New York Jets enter the season with a 3-headed monster at running back. Breece, Braylon, and Isaiah Davis. The potential there is through the roof for this Jets run game. Why just trade Breece? And then all of a sudden, you're kind of making yourself, then you're just one Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis injury away from them becoming thin at that position. I'm not in favor of trading who I believe will be the Jets' most targeted player, second most targeted player in the pass game in Breece. And also a guy that I still believe from a run game perspective. I still believe in him. I think in the right system, with the right amount of opportunities, I think he can have a bounce back season. I've said that. I know a lot of Jet fans are out on him. I still believe in Breece Hall. And more importantly, a lot of it has to do with the receiving ability and how Tanner Engstrand and this Jets offense is going to utilize that, because the previous coaching staff was so inept that they didn't ever use Breece as a receiver or never did enough. The potential with this backfield with Breece and Braylon Allen, both guys who can catch it, of course, who can also run it, 2 backfield sets with those guys, that keeps the defense guessing. That's another element you add to this offense that this team hasn't had. So I still believe in Breece, and I'm still in the boat of keeping Breece and expecting him to play a big role this year, especially when it comes to the receiving game, which there's a clear emphasis, and you've seen that in camp. One other Breece Hall quote that I thought was interesting, and for some reason, I don't know why, it rubs some fans the wrong way. I don't know why, but I thought it was a very good quote. On the Kyren Williams and James Cook extensions, Cook got done today, of course, Kyren Williams a couple days ago. Breece entering the final year of his contract, he had this to say. He said, quote, "They've done more than me. They've been in better situations. I feel like I'm just as talented as anyone, but those 2 guys deserve their payday and got what they deserve." And a lot of people, I think, were a little caught up in the second sentence. They've been in better situations. I mean, he's not wrong. He's not. Breece Hall has been in a horrible situation the last couple years. Him specifically, with the way that they ran the football and the way they did not use him properly, right? Utilizing his receiving ability. That's not wrong. It's true. And Breece has been very open about he said it there. They've done more than me. Even earlier on in camp, he recognizes he has to prove it. He's not thinking about the contract. This is a new regime. This regime didn't draft him. There's good running backs behind him that could potentially replace him. He understands he has to produce this year. I think he's got the right mindset. I had no issue with that quote. In fact, I think it's a very mature quote from him, recognizing he's got to do more. And no, he hasn't been in a good situation. But now he's got an offensive coordinator that I feel like hopefully he's using him the right way. So I had no issue with that. And that's it. Another episode in the books. Episode 601. Appreciate you all so much for tuning in. Let me know, what are your big takeaways from Jets versus Giants joint practice day number 2, and your overall takeaways from the last 2 days of Jets and Giants joint practices. The two, of course, will meet again on Saturday night at MetLife Stadium for the annual Snoopy Bowl. So stay tuned. We'll, of course, have covered for that and a lot more before then. Stay tuned. Any other Jets takes, drop them down below. Appreciate you all so much. Until next time, Jets, Jets, Jets.